Hi, Larry K, ShadowAnyone.com. Do you need a license to be a private investigator? Now, you may think you know the answer to this, but I'm going to explain in a little bit of detail here some things that may actually be a bit of a surprise to you. Now, the short answer, do you need a license, is yes and no. Okay, and there's two basic factors you have to take into consideration when figuring this out. One, of course, you know, is location, depending on where you are. And then there's a second item we'll get to here in a moment. Locations. Some places require you to have a license. Some places do not require you to have a license. You're going to have to find, if you're in the U.S., look at your specific state and see if they have a licensing requirement. Even if the state does not have a licensing requirement, you have to watch because maybe the county has a licensing requirement. And you do need a license in that case. Now, I want to explain, even if you're in a state that requires a license, look carefully because there are two different things you have to be aware of. There's a licensed private investigator and a registered private investigator. And as you know, to be a licensed private investigator, there are all sorts of hoops to jump through. Frequently, there's a proficiency test issued by the state. There's experience requirements, all those types of things to be a licensed private investigator, to have a license. Insurance requirements also. However, people, men and women who have their license, can register private investigators, the people who work for them, and this is very, very common. So, for example, a guy might have an agency, and the people he hires, the guy with the agency has the license, and he registers with the state the other investigators. They are private investigators. They're doing private investigator work. They're skip tracing. They're doing surveillances. They're doing the whole 9 yards. Technically, not a license. They're registered. So a subtle difference. But if you're trying to get into the business, this can make a big difference to you. So I wanted you to be aware of the difference between a licensed investigator and a registered investigator. Now, that's depending on location. I told you there's another thing, a second thing that may or may not require whether you have a license or not, and that's who you're working for. So there are contract private investigators. These are the people who hold a license, who run a business, who have a detective agency. They contract out their work. And there's proprietary investigators, or what we would call in-house investigators. And these frequently, mostly, do not have to have a license. So you're familiar with the idea of the detective agencies, the person who holds a license, who, they put the ads out and they're looking to get hired by individuals and companies to do work. But the in-house people are like banks and retailers and, just everything you can imagine. Many, many businesses have a fraud division or an investigative division folded into them somewhere. And those in-house people, the proprietary investigators, frequently, mostly do not need to have a license. And this is great news for you if you're trying to get experience, because you can get experience working in-house or proprietary, and it's that company's sole discretion, really, on who they hire, what their background is, what their experience requirements are. And some companies are on the ball enough to know, look, we want somebody with integrity. That's our key thing we're looking for. We can train them in the rest. If they have the slightest aptitude, the slightest interest, we can train them in what to do. We're looking for people with integrity. And if that's you, if you've got the right moral fiber, if you're clean and honest and on time and you don't lie to your employer and those types of things, that's very good news if you want to get into this business, because there are so many places looking to hire in-house investigators to do this type of work. So those are some of the things about whether or not you need a license or not. Of course, I have all kinds of training, and probably my favorite product, especially for people who are banging their head against the wall trying to get into the business, is the Investigator's Ultimate Guide to Process Serving. And this kind of straddles the fence between the contract and the proprietary. And that's good news for you, because you can become a process server very quickly, very easily, and be doing investigative work to get that experience. So you don't need to get necessarily hired by a company and be an in-house investigator. You would be hired by law firms. You approach law firms, and I teach you how in the guide and what to say and those types of things. But this gets you into the business as well without having to have a private investigator's license. So very, very valuable. And I'm not asking you to decide today or right now as to whether or not that course is right for you. What I would say is get it now. Order it now. Click the Buy It Now button. And you say, well, Larry, what's the difference? Big difference. Get the thing, look at it, evaluate it. You've got a full year. It's guaranteed. You mail it back to me, and you don't even have to put a note in there about what you thought of it or anything. You mail it back, and I will send you your money back if you don't like it. You can decide later. But get it now. Get it. Be one of those people who moves forward. What I don't want is I don't want you to be looking back 10 years from now and saying, you know, how would things been different if I had tried this or pursued it or taken at least one little baby step in that direction. So get it now. Take a full year to decide if this is right for you or not. There's absolutely no risk, no problems. I've been in business selling this training material for 10 years. I'm not going anywhere. So check it out. shadowanyone.com/PS is where you can get that process server training specifically if you're interested in it. This is Larry K. shadowanyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.